Sometime in March, a piece of SpaceX's rocket will find its way in the moon's vicinity and will crash into its surface. Collision will take place at an approximate speed of 5,700 miles per hour, meaning that it would be creating quite a large crater with a diameter of about 19 meters. Question is, will there be any consequences that SpaceX or Elon Musk might be facing? Let's get into the details of what's going on and how it actually happened. Stay tuned to find out. So could Elon Musk or his company get sued after it was discovered by astronomers as smart as Kate Dibiansky that the SpaceX rocket will be most likely crashing into the surface of the moon in March? Word got out. Quite a number of questions were raised about how legal it might be for the company to dump their glorified piece of trash in space, more specifically on the moon. Some legal experts are of the view that the situation could be grounds to hold SpaceX and its CEO liable, but a lawsuit like that might not ever materialize. Attorney Steven Kaufman said that suing the company and Musk was theoretically a possibility, but had no practical grounds. So one of the biggest reasons why we believe SpaceX cannot be sued for this stunt might be because technically no one really owns the moon. However, if we are to think about the wandering SpaceX rocket part crashing into, say, China's lunar rover or something else that belongs to another country, then Elon Musk might actually end up having a very serious legal issue to deal with. Two treaties that give clear answers. Let's talk about the Convention on International Liability for Damage Caused by Space Objects of 1972, as well as the Outer Space Treaty of 1966. According to these two treaties, any country can officially make legal claims if any of their spacecraft are done any harm by other countries. That's where the theoretical part comes from. That being said, these are still, as they call them, uncharted waters. Attorney Scot Anderson explained that there simply isn't a lot of precedent. But people at Forbes managed to find one incident where a liability claim in which the treaties had to be enacted. Back in 1978, a Soviet satellite ended up spilling radioactive material in the atmosphere after breaking up in the skies over Canada. The matter was settled between the Soviet Union and the Canadian government after the latter settled to be paid $3 million, an absolute $3 million less than their original ask. So it seems like Musk won't exactly have to pay up any amount of cash after his rocket crashes into the moon. Don't worry though, because Mr. Anderson, see what we did there, also believes that Elon Musk will not be able to keep getting away with littering the moon for long, because more and more countries are on their way to eventually establish their outposts on our planet's natural satellite. NASA's Artemis program is also gaining steam each passing day, so it looks like there are going to be more regulations, more control over what people like Musk can or cannot do on the surface of the moon. For instance, the countries which have signed the Artemis Accords have agreed to a set of rules which ensure limiting space junk. So how did this even happen? Well, as we all know by now, the crash of SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket into the surface of the moon will not be intentional. It wasn't obviously meant to collide, and how this came to happen is no less than a freak occurrence. In 2015, almost 7 years ago, Elon Musk company SpaceX launched the Deep Space Climate Observatory satellite from NASA into orbit from Florida. They used their Falcon 9 rocket for the job. When the rocket's upper stage separated itself from the vessel, it accidentally went tumbling into what appeared to be a very unstable orbit around the Earth. It went orbiting in a location which is common for things to end up after rocks throw them into deep space. Bill Gary is an astronomy software engineer who tracks deep space objects. It's because of him that we know that the debris is going to crash into the lunar surface around the 4th of March. However, this was unusual because typically when a rocket booster finds its way into this orbit, it returns to Earth and on its way back gets burned off in the atmosphere. Speaking of intentionally crashing spacecraft into the lunar surface, this has actually happened before, which is why we felt the need to clarify that SpaceX's crash is not intentional in nature. In the past, NASA has deliberately crashed several spacecraft into the moon for the sake of science. Now in other space news, Launcher has bought more SpaceX rideshare missions. That's right, Launcher has bought slots for 3 more missions on SpaceX's rideshare for their orbiter Tug as development of a small launch vehicle continues. It was announced on February 7 that they signed the contract with SpaceX. The Tugs will be flying on Falcon 9 rideshare missions spread across the months of January, April, and October in the year 2023. The first orbiter Tug will be launching on Transporter 6 rideshare mission in October, later this year actually. And this will be done under a contract which was announced last June, and the company revealed that they plan on developing landing orbiter. The vehicle has been designed to be able to deploy small sats for between $8,000 and $25,000 per kilogram in their desired orbits, and it'll also be able to host payloads for missions which can last up to 2 years. The pricing will obviously depend on the requirements of the mission. Max Hayot, the CEO of Launcher, said in a statement that they've chosen SpaceX as their provider in 2023 and beyond because they have incredible performance, are reliable, have industry-leading prices, as well as mission flexibility, which will allow the people at Launcher to be able to provide the lowest costing orbiter services to their customers. The development of orbiter is so far on track and will be finished for launch by fall this year. The company also announced that they've conducted a series of tests to see the functioning of the vehicle's main engine, which is essentially a thruster which requires nitrous oxide and ethane as propellants. One of the tests had the engine fired up for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Next, China's Shenzhou-21 satellite sends a dead satellite to a high graveyard orbit. China's Shenzhou-21, which is essentially a satellite to mitigate space debris, has docked with a dead Chinese satellite, which has forced the defunct satellite to alter its orbit drastically. With this, the Chinese have demonstrated that they're capable of doing things only the US had been able to do previously. Data from space monitoring firms shows that the satellite has been conducting sophisticated tasks in proximity operations with other objects all over the belt of the geostationary orbit since it was initially launched in October of 2021. The defunct satellite is towed off the orbit was actually a Beidou 2 G2, which was used for navigation purposes. The Shenzhou-21 has managed to send the dead satellite above the crowded belt of the orbit, approximately 36,000 kilometers above the equator. Up next, India hoping to launch Chandrayaan-3 lunar lander in August. On February 2, India's Science and Technology Minister announced that they've aimed to launch their Chandrayaan-3 mission to land on the moon in August later this year. The mission's planned for a launch from Satish Dhawan Space Center in India, on board the geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle known as the Mark III rocket. This mission is going to be India's second attempt to land their spacecraft on the moon. You may recall the country attempting a similar experiment back in 2019 and failing when Vikram lander and Chandrayaan-2's onboard rover ended up crashing into the lunar surface. The accompanying orbiter for the mission is circling the moon to this day. It's going to be serving as a communications relay for both the lander and rover of the Chandrayaan-3. Initially, the plan was to launch the mission in 2020, but then the pandemic struck and the project had to be delayed. The country's Science and Technology Minister, Mr. Jitendra Singh, said in a statement that Chandrayaan-3 is in progress based on learnings received from the failed attempt to Chandrayaan-2, which were provided by national-level experts. He also revealed that several hardware and other related tests have been conducted successfully, and the launch will be taking place in August. Once it's successfully managed to reach the moon, the Chandrayaan-3 will make an attempt to land 70.9 degrees south of the moon's equator. This is the same landing site which was chosen for Chandrayaan-2 to land at. And if successful, this mission will make India the fourth country after the United States, Russia, and China to soft land on the moon. That's a wrap for this video. What are your thoughts on holding billionaires and their companies accountable for lunar littering? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.